Hey everyone, welcome to an episode of the Diamond Diaries, a podcast about women in baseball, hosted by a woman in baseball, yours truly, Chelsea Raymer. How have you been?
I've been great, busy, as
Mhm.
I'm sure you have as well, right? Like you turn the page on the new year and all of a sudden like opening day feels like it's right around the corner. And it is.
Yeah, it gets a little scary but exciting at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah,
So
well,
how are you guys expecting the same big storm that we are?
we are, yes. Yeah, I get a little nervous being from Texas. Like, even when Mainers are like, hey, this is going to be really bad, I'm like, oh my goodness, this probably is going to be really bad.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
we'll
we're
see
gonna I'm
though.
gonna send yeah, I'm gonna send out a note to the front office today saying like be prepared to work from home on Monday.
Yeah. No, definitely. But thank you so much for being here today. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah,
So,
I'm excited.
welcome.
Thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah, welcome to the Diamond Diaries, Brooke. I've really admired your career in baseball. I found your path to be so inspiring, so I'm excited to pick your brain about it.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I find my story to be very boring, but I'm happy that I can help someone else.
Well, first, before we get into everything, I would love to know more about where you're from and then how sports were part of your life before working in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. I am the youngest of five, and all my siblings played sports growing up. So I grew up, at the field, at the gym, just being around sports and loving it and loving, the team atmosphere. My dad, is a lifelong coach. And so I would say that I defined my identity from a very early age as an athlete. Baseball was really my first love, and I always played Little League. Um, and it was great. I thought that I was going to be the first girl to play for the Boston Red Sox. Um, and I loved Little League, and I loved being around my older brother who is the closest in age, 2 years older than me. So he was kind of my sports idol growing up, and I would say like my role model in all things. Although he was a bit of a troublemaker, so I don't know if he was the right one. But he and I are still very close, so I can say that. Um, but yeah, I gave up baseball when I was about 12 when I aged out of Little League because there was no path for me really. And so when I was told there was no path for me to play baseball, I switched to softball and I just uh, didn't love it as much. And that's not a knock on softball. I think that girls and women should have the choice if they want to play baseball or softball. And for me, I loved baseball more and I kind of just let that pass. And so now, as we're entering this era of the Women's Professional Baseball League and all of these exciting opportunities for women, I just have so much admiration for the girls and women who didn't take no for an answer and continue to play baseball because they love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm curious. So when you did play Little League, were you typically the only girl on the team, or were you surrounded by a lot of other girls that were able to play?
There are two girls that I remember that I was friends with, Lauren and Nicole. And yeah, from what I remember, it was always really the three of us, and we weren't always on the same teams, but we were all very competitive, and it was nice not to be the only, but there were not many.
Was it hard being the only girl? Like, did a lot of people kind of chirp at you or like say things from either players or parents from the other teams?
I don't remember that at all. And I think that both myself and the other two girls that played we were pretty good.
Mhm.
So we held our own. And I don't remember, feeling completely out of place. I felt like I belonged. And I think part of me felt like I had something to prove because I was a girl. But I felt like I always proved it.
Yeah. What position did you play?
I was mostly a second baseman, but I remember playing first base. I remember pitching. I remember catching. I remember one game I got while I was hitting, I got decked in the shoulder blade, and I like couldn't throw, and so they put me out in the outfield, which like I guess they just expected the ball wouldn't get hit to me because um, because I don't know how I would have thrown it in if I like couldn't lift my arm. So yeah, so I moved around a bit, but I remember, I guess, mostly second base.
So I saw you attended Franklin Pierce University and you were part of the basketball program. How did you decide to attend that university and then, be part of the program?
Yeah, sure. So basketball became my focus, I would say, when I was a teenager, and I loved and I still love basketball. Um, just such a great sport and just so many great things about it. And so I earned an athletic scholarship to Franklin Pierce. It's a small Division II school in New Hampshire. And I mean, what a privilege to be able to go to school on a full athletic scholarship. And so that was a pretty easy decision for me because that was my only, full ride that I was offered. And so, especially because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, I didn't know what I wanted to study. I really liked the campus in New Hampshire, and it seemed like it was a really good fit for me. So it was a pretty easy decision. And I will say that like college was not my personal peak. I never like school was never tough for me. I always did well in school, but I struggled in college. I think because I defined myself so much by just being a basketball player. And when I look at the times in my life where I've really thrived, I think it's because I've been well-rounded. And that was a time where I just completely let, I think, being an athlete consume my identity. And so I admire so much student athletes now who do, a plethora of things outside of just their sport.
So I know you mentioned you said you weren't sure what you wanted to do or what you wanted to study, and then, but I did see you majored in sport and recreation management. How did you land on that major to pursue?
Chelsea, I thought I wanted to be like a math major at one point. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done every day, what actual career I would have pursued. I knew so little about it. I wanted to go into journalism, which I still think would have been a great path. For me, the problem is that I'm not outgoing enough that like going to people and like getting the answers from them, like the way that you've reached out and networked and all of that, I think would have struggled with that. I thought that I might want to be a teacher and go into education because I come from a family of educators, and I ultimately landed on sport and recreation management because Franklin Pierce had a great program. Um, but also I wanted to open my own community center in Woonsocket where I grew up.
Oh, that's awesome. So kind of fast forward to today. So you are the executive vice president and general manager of the Worcester Red Sox, Boston's AAA team. And you're making history as kind of the first female GM in the Red Sox organization. But I kind of wanted to go back to that first time that you did apply for the team, then known as the Pawtucket Red Sox. And I saw you were waiting tables and then volunteering at a sports marketing firm. What made you want to apply for that internship?
The first time I applied, I really just needed an internship for my program at Franklin Pierce. And I grew up going to Paw Sox games, so it just seemed like a natural opportunity. And like I said, like college was not my personal peak, and I wasn't as motivated. I didn't have the self-assurance that I ended up developing later in life. And so when I look back, I'm so grateful that I didn't get it that first time because I don't think I would have made the most out of it the way that I was able to the second time around. And so when I applied, and I was like crushed when I didn't get it the first time when I got rejected because like I hadn't really dealt with a lot of rejection in my life up to that point. And that's where like I tell people now who are looking to get a foot in the door is like, okay, a no to one opportunity is not a no forever. And you need to like be persistent and keep going after those things. Um, and so yeah, so that summer I ended up uh, doing an unpaid internship for a sports marketing firm in Providence. It was a great experience. And I waited tables on the side. And then a couple of years later, when I was getting my master's, I needed to complete an internship again. And this time I was like, I got rejected last time. I'm going to get it. And I went in with just this self of confidence, sorry, sense of confidence and peace that like I didn't have the first time around. And I would say maturity as well. Um, and I think by the next day they called me and told me that I had gotten the internship. And again, I was able to get so much out of it that I wouldn't have gotten the first time because I put so much into it. And it meant more to me having not had it the first time around. And this time, I think being a little bit further, again, I was getting my master's. I wasn't just doing it for credit. I really wanted to apply the things I was learning in my master's program into real life. And so the second time around, I was like, you know what, I'm not here for a long time, but I'm going to make the most of it. I didn't think I would be there for a long time. And here I am, like 10 plus years later, and I'm still with the team.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that you said that because I was going to ask, so you worked your way up from being, you did your internship and then you were assistant to the director of merchandising and then the manager of merchandising and then eventually director of marketing and merchandising. Can you kind of talk about your transition between, all of those roles? Was moving up, in the organization something you expected, once you did complete your internship and kind of get into a groove with the Paw Sox?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I will say that I have been incredibly lucky in my career. And that's not to say that I haven't worked hard. Like I've been prepared when those opportunity comes, but I'm very fortunate that those opportunities have come at the right times as well. And so when I interned with the Paw Sox, it was right when Larry Lucchino and that ownership group had taken over the Paw Sox. And so it was I would say it was a tumultuous time with the Paw Sox, but it was also a really exciting time because we were figuring out the future of the franchise. And so it provided these growth opportunities that otherwise might not have existed. And so after my internship year, my direct supervisor left the organization along with some others who pursued another business opportunity which opened up a full-time position for me right after my internship. And like that doesn't always, like you work in baseball, like that does not always happen. And so I was able to step into a full-time role in merchandise while I was getting my master's. And the club was very supportive that I was finishing school while I was working full-time. Um, and even from there, I would say like I would just take it kind of in these like 6 month intervals of, okay, I'm just going to do my best until I hit this goal or until I hit this goal. It wasn't until I went to my first baseball winter meetings in, I think it was 2017. And I went to the Woman in Baseball event where I was really exposed to these other women who had, these longstanding careers in baseball. Because at the Paw Sox, when I first joined, there was only one woman in the front office, Sammy Sequoia Beggs. Then she was Sammy Souza, but she's still with us now. She's our VP of ticket operations. And she was the only one. And she had been with the team for a couple of years. There were no women who had had like these long, successful careers with the team. And so I just didn't have that to look to say that could be me until I went to the winter meetings. And then all of a sudden, there's a room full of these women. Um, and it was really the first time I kind of let myself think, okay, well, maybe that could be me. Maybe I could have a career in baseball. And even then, I wasn't sold. But I just told myself I would continue as long as I was enjoying what I was doing, I was growing, then, I would kind of just see where it takes me. And it has taken me to Worcester, and here I
Well,
am.
I'm curious, did you have any women that you met at the winter meetings that you keep in touch with, or anybody that you really looked up to that you got to meet while you were there?
Yes, I would say I look up to a ton of women there. One woman in particular, she runs the Women in Baseball event every year, Melissa Harkavy, and she has been such an advocate for women in baseball for that event. And again, seeing and reflecting on what that has meant to me in my career, I always try to tell her, whatever you need me to do to support that, I'm willing to do. But she's someone who has a way of connecting these women throughout the industry to make sure that we know that we all exist.
So after the team, you guys made the move to Worcester, you continued to do all these amazing things, and then you make history as the first female GM. I read a quote where it said, you never pictured yourself having, that career in baseball you kind of talked about. What do you think the little girl who was devastated she had to give up playing baseball would say if she saw what you're doing now?
Mhm. Oh, great question. I haven't been asked that one. Um, I think that little girl would be disappointed that I wasn't playing baseball and that I was working in baseball, in all honesty, because I think that I had such little exposure as a young person to the opportunities outside of playing that exist, not just in baseball, but in sports in general. And that's something that I think is incredibly important is, play sports as long as you love them, as long as you can. But if you love them, know that there are opportunities outside of just playing. Um, and so I probably would have had no idea what you were talking about at 12 years old because I would have said, what do you mean I can work in baseball but not be playing?
And then, so additionally, I read a headline or kind of, I think it was a social media graphic that says Brooke Cooper doesn't like to talk about Brooke Cooper. So, how has this been, dealing with the media attention and everything that has come with this position?
Yeah, I'll say that I was not ready when I accepted the position for what an emphasis would be put on of me being a woman, in all honesty. And internally here, it didn't feel like a big deal because I've been with the club for so long. Now we're fortunate we have other women in leadership positions, and the women that we have here are just so vital to the success of our organization. And so at the time, again, I didn't think it would be a big deal. And it was Bill Wanless, our director, or our VP of PR, who kind of warned me. And I was like, oh, I don't think that's going to matter. And so I was really just focused on doing the work, right? Because I felt like I was getting these accolades for being the first female GM, and I hadn't even started the job yet. And so I just wanted to prove that I could do the job and do the work. That was really important to me, and it still is really important to me. But I would say it was an incredibly humbling experience because I didn't think it mattered, but seeing how much it has mattered to other women shows me what a privileged experience I've had throughout my career. Not to say I haven't had challenges in being a woman in a male-dominated industry, but the fact that like it didn't feel like it was like this incredible accomplishment, um, to me just showed that it was a privilege and hearing the support, getting the support from other women. That I'm a mother of two. I have one on the way, which is, beautiful and challenging at the same time. Hearing from other mothers who have struggled with that balance in their career. Other women who've said, like, I never thought that I would see a woman and like a mom nonetheless in this type of role. And like hearing the emotion in their voice, like, has just been so humbling to me that I would say it's taken on a meaning for me that like I just did not anticipate when I first accepted the role.
Well, I'm glad you kind of mentioned how you are a mom and you do have a family of your own, because that was actually my next question is what advice would you give to those women who are either in sports and hoping to have a family or are looking to pursue a career in sports and, also have a family? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, sure. I would say that for us moms, like we're all just doing our best, right? And I feel bad sometimes when I have young people come to me and they say, "How do you do it? Like you make it look so easy and you're able to have a career and you're able to do this." And I don't want to be discouraging by any means because it's possible, but I also don't want to give this false perception that it's easy because it's really hard. And for those who are experiencing that it's hard, I don't want them to think that they're doing something wrong,
Hmm.
right? Um, and so that's really important to me. So like it is really hard, but the thing is, I think it's really difficult being a parent, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, whether you're someone who works outside of the home, whether you work in baseball, whether you work as an educator, whether like no matter what you do, it's really difficult. And so my greatest advice that I can give is like that there's no one structure or format that you should feel like you're doing it right or wrong. Like baseball's a very unconventional schedule. And so like I miss bedtime quite a bit and there are times where I work weekends and I work nights. Um, but the thing is, like, I love what I do, and my kids also love coming to the ballpark, and they get such a sense of community out of being at the ballpark that's really special. And I think it's important for them to see their mom pursuing, my dreams and doing something that I really enjoy. I struggled a lot before opening day last year, where I was missing bedtime quite a bit because you know what it's like the preparation up to opening day. And I said to my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? Am I uh what are they missing by me working so much? And then my 5-year-old came to opening day and it was like the best day of his life, right? And I think while he's like high-fiving the mascots, my husband just like pulls me over and he says, you t talk a lot about like what they might be missing. He goes, but look at how much they're gaining.
Mhm.
And like to me, like that was just like so meaningful. And it doesn't have to be like a one size fits all approach. Again, I think that we're all doing our best. And so like just think about like what works for you and your family because it really is different for everyone.
Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite memory so far at the ballpark through like all these amazing things you've done?
I can't say that I have one favorite memory. I have so many, and I think it depends on like what specifically we're talking about that like will spark a certain memory. Um, I'll say in Pawtucket, I loved my favorite project that I worked on was when we became the Pawtucket Hot Wieners
Mhm.
because the Paw Sox were such this like really traditional brand in baseball and they had never done or truly out of the box alternate identity that you see very commonly throughout minor league baseball. And that was kind of my first big project in Pawtucket as the merchandise manager, where I researched what could be done and all of the licensing requirements and all of these things, and I really brought that project full circle with the creative help and other help from so many team members. But when we launched as the Pawtucket Hot Wieners, Rhode Island went crazy and we sold all this merchandise and it was super super fun. um, and I don't know, that to me in Pawtucket, that was probably my favorite project that I worked on. Here in Worcester, it's so difficult because I'll tell you, any given homestand, like I'm in tears because there's something that moves me to tears, like in a good way. Um, my son will say happy tears.
Aw.
But like between the fans that we meet and you see, maybe a family that's going through a hard time who gets an outlet because they get to come to the ballpark and be honored on the field. Um, something like that. It's just, I am constantly reminded of the privilege of working in baseball, and it's really tough for me to pinpoint, I'd say, one
Yeah.
specific memory.
Yeah, no, I love those. That's great. And I love the hot wieners. I thought that was so cool. I remember hearing about it, like reading about it and seeing the merch and everything, and I thought that was just awesome.
We're actually bringing that back we still honor our Rhode Island roots. Every year we have Paw Sox Heritage Day, and this year the team will be wearing the Pawtucket Hot Wieners throwback jerseys.
Oh, that's awesome. I grew up a Red Sox fan, but being from Texas, that was my one like big disappointment was I never got to go to Pawtucket because they had already stopped playing by the time I had moved to New England.
Yeah.
But I would love to have experienced, that stadium and kind of atmosphere because I know people love Worcester, but then I also hear a little bit about how they do miss Pawtucket sometimes.
Yeah, McCoy Stadium was beautiful. And I have very fond memories there and great people there. I'm curious, sorry, I know you're supposed to be asking me the questions.
No,
How
it's
did you
okay.
become a Red Sox fan living in Texas?
Yeah, it's funny. So my father went to Boston University, And he grew up, he was an army brat. So he always jokingly tells people, he doesn't really have a home because he lived everywhere, but it gets a little confusing. My parents met in Texas and they had me in Texas. And then he had gone to Boston University prior. And so after they had me, they kind of missed Boston to the point where we actually moved back. So I did live in Boston when I was little, but
Okay.
it wasn't really enough to fully remember because I was in preschool. And so we actually, moved back to Dallas by the time I was getting ready to start kindergarten because that's where all of our family is. But my sister was born in Boston and my dad actually lives there now. So we go to Woo Sox games a lot. Like whenever the Sea Dogs are on the road, I'm very fortunate enough to I get to take him to like Woo Sox games. And we
Oh,
get to go
that's
to
great.
Fenway.
That's great.
Yeah, but no, I love being back in New England and like getting to see like the Woo Sox. I think I went the first year you guys opened, my dad and I went. So it's been fun to see like the growth because I took him back last year and he was just like eyes wide open like, "Oh my gosh, this is like amazing." Like we thought it was amazing the first time and he was like, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy."
Well, that makes me very happy to hear. And I have gone to Sea Dogs games and have had a great experience there as well. So I agree. I think that we're really fortunate to be in the Red Sox family.
Yeah. Well, so this kind of brings me to my final and probably most cliche question. What would you tell a woman who wants to be in your shoes one day?
hmm Um, Gosh, I think change my advice on this all the time. So I guess my general advice, right, and this is for like men and women, is like for so many people who are looking to have a career in sports, like it's twofold. Like number one, you have to be able to say yes, right, and be able to do even the small things enthusiastically, with pride, with joy, and I would say in contrast to that, like in addition to being well-rounded, you also need to have something that you specialize in and something that you're good at. And it's never too late to become an expert at something. And so when I started with the Paw Sox, like I didn't know anything about like anything. And so I was working in merchandise and I ended up, learning a ton about the retail business. I was able to learn about people management. I was able to learn about licensing. And then that set me up to be, I talk about, being lucky for opportunities, but that made me the point person that when we moved to Worcester, we were going through the rebrand, obviously, from Paw Sox to what are we going to be? And it ended up not being that crazy or different. It was the Worcester Red Sox and the Woo Sox. But I was the point person on that rebrand. And so yes, you need to say yes to, you know, almost anything because we all wear a lot of hats in this industry, and that's really important. But you also need to make sure that you become specialized in something because the path to becoming a GM, right? General manager, general, like there's a lot of things. And now I'm surrounded by a ton of experts in their field, right? Like our ticket sales director, like he is the expert in tickets, and our PR VP is the expert in that area, and so on and so forth. Um, but it's important to have that knowledge in those different areas as well. And you need a path to get there. Like you don't start off as a general manager. You need to specialize in something. So I'd say that's really important. Again, it doesn't, it's not specific to women. And then for women, specifically, I would say that, if you feel like maybe you're somewhere where you're underrepresented or you're dealing with some of the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated workplace and you have those, specific things that are kind of bothering you is like it's important to talk about those things because people aren't mind readers. And one of the things I found in my career is like if you don't give your organization the opportunity to step up, then you'll never know what could have happened. And for me, there have been, opportunities and times where I've thought about leaving baseball and I've gone back to club leadership and had these conversations around, hey, like, can I have a family and work in baseball? Like, will you work with me? Like, can I go on leave? Can I, do these things? And yeah, there are, of course, there are like legal protections around that. But you also just want to know that you're supported in those ways. and you won't know that you're supported unless you have those conversations. And I think they're incredibly intimidating to have, especially early in your career. But it's important to give people the benefit of the doubt. And like I was really fortunate in my scenario that that our leadership was incredibly supportive and it opened the door to these conversations. And now these types of conversations are very normal in our
Mhm.
culture and in our workplace. Um, and if you find that you don't get that type of response, then maybe it's not the place for you, and that's okay too. But it is important to have those conversations because if you don't, you never know.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I lied. I do have one more question. Something
Okay.
you said kind of got my wheels turning
Okay.
about, we wear different hats and, overseeing a lot of things. What is the biggest misconception about being a general manager?
Oh my gosh, in baseball, it's
Mhm.
that I make any sort of baseball decisions because so the way that minor league baseball is set up with Major League Baseball, all of our players are under the Boston Red Sox umbrella. And so I'm responsible for like the compliance and the communication with the Boston Red Sox, but I'm not signing players, right? And so at the AAA level, it's funny. I get it both ways. So first I'll get people who will tell me like, "Hey, that was a great decision with so and so, and the team's doing great, and keep up all the work you're doing." And I'm just like, that's not me. Like, I handle the business side and then the compliance for baseball. And I have a great relationship with our field manager, Chad Tracy, but like, he's the one who's doing all of the player development along with his coaching staff. And then on the flip side, right, when there are personnel moves or trades and things like that, I also hear people will tell me, "What are you doing?" and "Why did you make that move?" And so anyway, I would say that's the biggest misperception on what my job is as a general manager in minor league baseball. I'm so happy to be so close to the game. Um, but as a GM in minor league baseball, really you're overseeing the business operation, again, the compliance with Boston Red Sox and Major League Baseball, um, the culture, the fan experience, all of those things. And so it just it makes me laugh when I either get the praise
Yeah.
uh, or not.
Oh my gosh, that is too funny. Well, that's all the questions I had, unless you wanted to add anything else.
No, I'll just say thank you so much for having me on here. I'm right now planning to go on maternity leave. I'm expecting my third kiddo, and so I'm really happy that we were able to squeeze this in.
Yeah,
So I
no, thank you
appreciate it.
so much. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. This was great. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll chat again soon. XOXO, Chelsea.